As I said before, my name is Lex, and I am going to start with a story that might make you a little uncomfortable, because that's what I excel at. You got to stay in your lane, and this is my lane. So before I start, some important key facts. One, I am a biracial transgender man, which is not important to the rest of your life, but is important to the story. So I have a friend who is like a brother to me. And, oh, this is buzzing. Nick, can you turn that down for me, please? Sorry, that's not part of the story. So I have this friend who's a brother. I grew up with him. From the time I was in school, maybe elementary school and on. And he's been like a brother to me. And we lost touch after high school. And through the magic of Facebook, we found each other again. And we both changed quite a bit. Let's just say that. We both changed a little bit since the time that we were friends. But we still loved each other. And I was very nervous when we reconnected, and I will tell you why, because his profile picture, now mind you, I grew up with this person. His profile picture is of a tattoo on his back. The tattoo on his back is an iron cross, which is the entirety of his back, and across the top of his back it says white pride. My friend, my brother, is a skinhead. He is 100% certifiably a skinhead. Remember the fact that I told you about myself in the beginning? Okay. So we come, obviously, from very, very different perspectives. And it would have been very easy for me to use a few expletives and keep on moving. But this is my brother. This is a person that I grew up with, that I loved, who knows part of me that very few people in my life know about me. And we started talking, and I was nervous, obviously, right, for obvious reasons. And we've developed a really sweet love for each other, out beyond the love that we already had for each other. And I would consider him one of my best friends. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that it's obviously not aligned with my worldview or with my politics. But I love this man, and he loves me. And because we love each other, we're able to have hard conversations. And I get offended, but I don't take it personally. And he gets irritated, but he doesn't take it personally. And because we're able to have those conversations, we've both become better people. He has a very different outlook on life. We get into arguments, we get into fights. I've said things I probably shouldn't say. He's said things he probably shouldn't say. But underneath of it all, we love each other. And that's what I want to talk about today. My topic this morning is untangling the line. And the most important thing that I want to get across in this is the need for humility and the need for love. If we didn't love each other, we couldn't have met each other. We couldn't have had those conversations. We would have been opposed to one another in such a manner that we could not have reached each other. And it's only that love that allowed us to have those hard conversations. Now, that's an extreme example. Most of you probably don't have friends like that. And I don't know why I do either. I don't know why that's part of my life path, but I have an eclectic collection of individuals in my life from all different walks of life. And I think it's because my own walk has been so eclectic. That's part of what I want to talk about. Before I keep going, can you just turn these off? Is that possible? No, they're buzzing at me. Okay. I just have to live with it? Okay. Yeah, I won't take it personally. Thank you. Somebody's going to help me. It's distracting. There's like, it sounds like a bug zapper. So I want to talk about this untangling the line, especially as we're moving into 2016, and God gave us these lessons in the form of Donald Trump that we have to listen to every day. And so we're going to have to figure this out. We're going to have to figure out how to deal with people that drive us crazy. And I know this is a little too late because Christmas and Thanksgiving just happened, and you already had to deal with your families, but this applies retroactively. You know, they say that there's often only 10% on either side of any particular issue, right? There's 10% that are radically left, 10% that are radically right, and 80% that are moderate, fairly in the middle. Some indifferent, some a little more leaning one way or the other. And I think this is interesting because we live in an interesting time. We live in a time that's different than any other time in human history. And I talk about this a lot because I find it absolutely fascinating. Several thousand years ago, or several hundred years ago, let's say, religion was the main mechanism for organizing society, for organizing culture, okay? And I think it's important to put this in historical context. So I'm not going to talk to you about God. I'm going to talk to you about why the mechanism of God came to be. Because we were in chaos. We were in absolute chaos. You had people who didn't even know you should be bathing yourself, right? We're talking about basic principles that religion filled the gap. Religion came in and said, let's get organized, let's figure this out, let's create a set of rules, a moral compass, a moral set of guidelines that we can follow that will allow us to be in community without hurting each other, right? A way that we can care for it. Now, if you put any 10 random people in a room for long enough, they're going to have to figure out how to organize themselves. Religion is an extension of that. And then we got politics. Now, they have a close link because they serve the same purpose. And at some point in our time, those words have become tainted in this way that it makes a lot of us disengage. It makes a lot of us disinterested. It makes a lot of us push back or push away. But really, what we're talking about is just a system of organization. We're going to have to re-engage. Because what's happening is you're seeing a mechanism be co-opted. Because people don't want to engage in what they think that mechanism means. But we're going to have to re-engage because you still need a mechanism that allows you to organize people. That's all politics is. That's all religion is. So now we live in a really interesting time because there's another mechanism that we can use globally, not locally, not regionally, globally. So you're having this really interesting inpour, this influx of culture, of ideas, of perspectives, of all of these different things that are coming together, you know, from me as a millennial on the internet, but maybe for you in a different way. And you're having to figure out, what do we do with all this stuff, with all of these different ideas? And what ends up happening is a lot of people say, well, I'm going to plant my stake here. This is me, this is mine, that's you, that's yours, and we can fight about it, but I'm not moving from this spot. Because this is what I know, this is what I believe, and I'm not moving from here. Now, here's the interesting thing about my friend. Obviously, we don't share any political ideology. But what we do share is more than we don't share. We both have families. We both are step-parents. We're both We're both the same, relatively, we won't be the same exact age. In fact, we're both 32. We're both figuring out what it means to have a family, to provide for a family, to raise your kids with good understanding, good ethical ideologies, good moral compasses, and how to deal with stepping on Legos every day. We share that in common. And our everyday experience is more common than our political ideologies are, which really, honestly, how much do you engage with that stuff on a regular, everyday, practical way? Probably not for a lot of us. We probably don't. And when you come to understand that you share more than you don't, there's a way in which you can begin to see somebody for the person they are. Not for the ideology that they hold, but for the person that they are. Okay, it's taken me a while to get back to this point, but I'm coming back around. What is required now is not religion in the same way. In fact, I'd argue it's not politics in the same way either. And it's not God in the same way. Because in a community like Inner Light, we don't require that you have a preconceived notion of God. In fact, I've talked about this a lot. I'm not sure I know what God is. But what I do know is that I believe in the inherent goodness of people. And that I do believe that there's some something I can't name, something I can't see that operates in a way that allows people to be in divine right relationship with one another and in divine right relationship with life. You call that whatever you want. A spiritual community like this is giving you the tools to meet in the middle. We're no longer telling you not to sleep with your neighbor's wife, don't kill people, don't take a bath every now and again, don't eat things that make you sick. I don't have to tell you all that anymore. You figured that out, right? You figured out pretty much how to take care of the basic necessities. You're not requiring somebody to come in and organize your life in the same way. But what you are needing is still a sense of purpose, still a sense of hope, still a sense of faith. And that's what communities like this provide you with the tools to have. Okay, so let me get to the bad part. Or was I already in the bad part? Was that what the laugh was for? Oh, my bad. Okay, well, the bad part to me. So, because we live in a different time with access to critical thinking, with access to new and different ideas, with access to more information, we have a more skeptical view of life, right? We're not going to buy the same stuff that our grandparents bought. Not physically buy, I mean the ideas, the concepts of God, the dogmas, the ideologies, right? We're not going to take in that same way and the same stuff maybe that our grandparents or our grandparents' did. We're going to look at things a little differently. And because of that, these old world traditions don't work the same way. Now, I found this incredibly frustrating when I came here to Inner Light. I remembered thinking, I wish that I believed in God in the same way that my grandmother did. I wish that I could go to church, that I could pray in that way, that I could kneel, that I could light that candle, that I could say that prayer and believe in my heart of hearts what my grandmother believed, that praying was going to cure something. And as sad as it sounds, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. But that's okay. I remember here, actually, I'm not going to say who it was, but there was a spiritual teacher who was here who was speaking about a mystical experience that they had. And I remember thinking, nah, that's not true. Like you didn't really think that happened. No, he really thought it happened. And I remember realizing in that moment that it didn't matter if I believed, because he did. And the people who were watching him believed it too. Maybe not me, maybe not 4 other people, but the vast majority of people who were watching who were listening to that story believed. And something about that belief enriched their life. And then it didn't matter if I believed it or not. We are in a time in which you need to sort out the things you believe and the things you don't. And the things you don't, you need to stop judging them. It doesn't matter if you believe it. Now, where this untangling the line thing comes in is that judgment that we're carrying for some people's beliefs. Now, I'm not talking about the beliefs that are detrimental, right? That are harmful, that are hurting somebody. But that judgment that we harbor for somebody else's beliefs allows us to be part of the knot. Because we're meeting somebody else's belief with our judgment, and that makes both of us ridiculous. And that's really, really important. In my conversations with my brother, I realized that I'm coming from my perspective, and I am certain I am right. And he's coming from his perspective, and he's certain he's right. And neither of us find a way to be loving. And it's not until we're willing to be loving that we come to the realization it doesn't matter who's right. He's still my brother. And when we come to that understanding that we can be loving, the lines that we've drawn between us don't matter. They don't matter anymore. Now this, I think this is really interesting because we're exposed to more people's life experiences than any other time in human history. In fact, somebody like me couldn't exist just 100 years ago, let alone be up here talking to you. That's how far we've come. And at the same time, we're reaching a bottleneck in where we're trying to enforce our ideologies onto one another. And we are becoming part of that knot. Spiritual communities like this, spiritual tools like prayer, like faith, like meditation, they allow you to get into a place in which the things that somebody thinks reflects more on them than it does on you. And when you begin to take that less personally, you can begin to meet somebody else's humanity rather than their ideology. And that's the place that we're in now. What you're seeing like on things like blogs, like Facebook, like Twitter, these comments, they're becoming release valves. Becoming release valves for this repressed sense of, for a sense of oppressed ideas. So when you're seeing somebody like a Donald Trump, who, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to pretend to you like I like the guy. I don't. But when you see that, what you're seeing is a release valve. What you're seeing is a whole set of people who, every time I see those polls, I'm like, who? Who is it? Who is it that pushed the yes button? Like, I just want to know who. I've never met anybody who would push the yes on that poll button, and I want to know who it is. But you know who it is. Who it is somebody that doesn't feel as though they have the freedom to express those, what I would call ridiculous ideas, and so they see somebody who does. And so that person becomes the form of those ideas they're not allowed to express. What ends up happening when we do that is that person becomes more firm in their stance. Well, you tell me I'm not allowed to believe this, well, then I'm going to believe it till the day I die. Not because I believe it, because you told me I couldn't. And we've done the same thing to our parents or our grandparents' concepts of the world, too. I know I certainly have. I talked about my dad the last time I was here. That my dad's way of seeing the world, I simply refused to meet him there, more out of spite than out of actual understanding for what it was he believed, he thought, he cared about, whatever. And we're going to need to find a way to bridge that gap. Because what's going to end up happening is we're going to end up reinventing the wheel. And we're going to get run over by it. It's not that every idea that came before us was bad, and so we have to find new ideas. It's that we have to find a way to bridge those ideas and the ideas that we're having now. It's like we have to find a way to bring in some of those concepts, some of those rituals, some of those traditions, some of those patterns of belief or patterns of thought or ways of building community or ways of connecting and infuse them with these new sense of ideas that we have, with this new way of experiencing and seeing the world and this new way that allows us to expand our communities, our circles of friends, our ideas of family, our ideas of faith, our ideas of God, our ideas of prayer, our ideas of church, our ideas of teachers, our ideas of mentors. All of these things have to evolve. But we're not, I just read this quote. Somebody said, progress is always great unless it's going in the wrong direction. Just because we're moving one way fast doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to go. And I guess what I'm asking us is to slow down. What are we leaving behind? What are we throwing out because we're not interested in the person that brought it to us? This is what untangling the line is really about. It would be easy for me to throw out my brother. But he's my brother. If I'm not going to help him, who is? You don't want to deal, trust me, you do not want to deal with him. So it's my responsibility, right? He's my brother. And that's where we have to go. We have to get to this sense, this understanding, and you're seeing it because there's a global sense of the world, a global sense of the community that you're beginning to understand that your family unit is not just your family anymore. For many of us, we're living in chosen families. We're living in families that we built. We're building in families that we created, that we chose. And that's great. And now we've got to find a way to erase these lines. We've got to find a way to untangle them in a way that's still empowering, that's still enriching, that doesn't throw the person out with the ideology. And that's what I'm asking for. When we talk about this concept of sacred, and I think one place where my friend and mentor, Rev D, and I differ. And it's probably because the generational difference between us. She grew up steeped in a very particular tradition. I grew up in none. I'm not beholden to any dogma, to any sense of religion, to any sense of belief system. And because of that, I'm not limited by any concept of God. And I think we're in a time now where we no longer have to be limited by any sense of people. Most people are going about their lives trying to take care of their basic necessities. And it's most of the time when you get that stuff figured out that you have time to worry about what somebody else is doing. We have to find a way to meet each other. We have to find a way to build a bridge between my island and your island and let that bridge be that place of love where we can meet, where we can figure out how to untangle some of these lines, have some of these hard conversations, not throw away the person because of their ideas, not call them good, not call them bad, not say you're right, not say they're wrong, but just find a way to be loving. And we have to find a way to love these release valves. We have to find a way not to push the person who's pushing back, but to find a way to pull that person in closer. Find a way to have those hard conversations. As you get ready to go into this next year, I don't care how you do it. I don't care what you call it. Find a way to ground yourself in an understanding that life is good, and that all is sacred. And if you can do that, then nothing really sticks. You can meet people where they are, and you can love and be loving. Amen? Amen. Let's pray.